U.S. President Donald Trump defended his outreach to Russia this week in an interview with the Christian Broadcasting Network. He also defended his son, Donald Jr., after the release of emails this week that revealed a questionable meeting last year between Trump campaign officials and a Russian lawyer. Now, according to the emails, Trump Jr. believed the Russian lawyer had some damaging information on Hillary Clinton. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone has our report.
This is held
in an interview with conservative Christian broadcaster Pat Robertson. President Trump said he gets along very well with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
But I do believe it's important to have a dialogue. And if you don't have a dialogue, it's a lot of problems for our country and for their country. I think we need dialogue.
Trump also used Twitter to defend his son, Donald Jr., after the release of emails that detailed a meeting during last year's presidential campaign with a Russian lawyer offering damaging information about Hillary Clinton. Trump once again slammed the Russia investigation as a witch hunt, but the president's nominee to head the FBI, Christopher Wray, disagreed with that description at his Senate confirmation hearing.
That's correct, Senator. My loyalty is to the Constitution, to the rule of law, and to the mission of the FBI. And no one asked me for any kind of loyalty oath at any point during this process, and I sure as heck didn't offer one.
The revelations in Donald Trump Jr.'s emails have put the Trump White House on the defensive. On VOA's Encounter program, analyst John Fortier says public concern over the Russia probe is taking a toll on the president's approval rating.
When he fired Jim Comey, he went down, and he's sitting at about 40% now. Those are things that are not helping the president and not likely to go away right away.
And joining us now to discuss the White House controversy that won't go away, I'm joined in our studio by VOA White House correspondent Pete Heinlein, along with VOA senior national correspondent Jim Malone, whose report you just heard. Jim, let's talk about this Russia probe. It's dominated political discussion now for months. What's different this time?
Oh, this takes it to another level.
Does it?
Mel? Yes. I've noticed in recent days some conservative columnists now saying that the email chain that's been put out there in their minds is evidence of collusion. Now, this is a debatable point, we should point out. The Trump White House is really pushing back hard on that. But the point is, this is the first information we have that there was some sort of at least an attempt by the Trump campaign to glean some damaging information from someone, a Russian lawyer, who at least initially was purported to be connected to the Russian government. So this takes it to a new level. And the problem, I think, for the White House is it creates a lot more questions, and this is going to go on again indefinitely with more investigations and questions.
But to the president's defense, in spite of what we're hearing about the possible collusion here, it is debatable. In fact, the president says this meeting between his son and the Russian lawyer is pretty much standard practice.
That's right.
Is it?
Well, he says zero happened. There wasn't a government lawyer that he met
Anybody
with.
would have done it, is what I'm hearing.
Yes, but of course, something like this does raise a lot of questions. It's highly unusual, let's face it.
I'm wondering, Jim, have the legal experts weighed in? I mean, did Donald Trump Jr. actually cross any legal boundaries here?
It's, again, a debatable point. One of the issues that came up is this a possible violation of federal campaign finance laws, which is a crime to solicit or take information from a foreign power, for example. As I say, there's a lot more here that needs to come out. One of the latest revelations coming from NBC News, for example, is that there was another figure in that meeting that Donald Trump Jr. has not revealed previously. And let me get to the main point, I think, of this. Okay. For months, the president and his campaign and his advisors have said there was never any contact with anyone.
Right.
The problem with the Trump Jr. emails is it undermines a major point of defense. And the question is, what else don't we know, and what else aren't they perhaps forthcoming about?
And that's why it seems to matter right now. But Pete, the president, obviously putting on a brave face to this. He tweeted this week that the White House is functioning perfectly. Is it really? I mean, what's the mood like in the White House? You're there almost every day.
Yes, and I would say that there's a mood of foreboding. There is a feeling that there are shoes about to drop They want to know who are the leakers. Nobody trusts each other. Where is this information coming from? It's almost a paranoia that exists there. People who have been friendly in the past are suddenly tense, snapping at.
So it's kind of a palpable tension that's surrounding the White House these days.
I would say so. While they're trying to put on a brave face, it's this lack of trusting each other that takes its toll. It gnaws on everybody.
And yet, Jim, Fortier, your analyst, essentially says the president's approval rating sits at about 40%. It really hasn't changed all that much over the last month or so. I mean, does that suggest
there
that
have been some dips? A lot of polls show it going into the mid-30s, for example,
right?
and then when it's quieter, he
sort of
pops
rises
back
up
up toward 40%. We know that the president's hardcore followers are generally sticking with him. The people to keep an eye on are the people in Congress, the Republicans. Most of them are not coming to his defense so much as they're being quiet. And there have been a few critics and a few people like Lindsey Graham saying in the wake of the Trump Jr. emails that this is a problem that we need to address. But most of them want to focus on their agenda, which is supposed to be the president's agenda on things like health care and tax reform.
and Pete, to Jim Malone's point, does this steady drip hurt the president's legislative agenda?
It's damaging it, no question about it. He wants to talk about health care. He wants to get that thing passed. He wants to move on to tax reform. And everything is just tied up. We're talking about Senate Intelligence Committee hearings and all kinds of people testifying and one thing or another. Jim?
But this is the lack of discipline that we see because, yes, he wants those things. And then he's tweeting out about defending his son, talking about that. I am stunned by the fact that his son and the president and others are openly talking about the Russia contacts. This is all under investigation. And we went through a Watergate period where people basically shut up about what was going on because they knew they were eventually going to have to testify. And how in some ways reckless this could be and could hurt them down the road, I'm kind of stunned by.
On the other hand, they see that as being open. That's their strategy. They've decided that the way to do this is to just treat it as if it's normal, and we'll get through this. We'll power through it.
Whatever the strategy is, I'm sure the president must be disappointed that after G20, all of this again is back to overshadow whatever.
That's right. He had some good days, as Jim said, and now it's back to the drip, drip.
And I'm going to have you gentlemen back on again because this story is not going to go away. Thank you so much, Jim Malone and Pete Heinlein. We're going to take another quick break right now. But when we come back, a one-year update on the journey of a lifetime, one man's quest to visit every single national park in these United States. A long and winding road indeed. But first, a reminder, we want to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, and comments on our Facebook page. The address is VOA The Correspondents. We'll be right back.